In this video, we're going to talk about altered forms. And altered forms are different from shaping. So shaping is just what we do to make different shapes on the wheel. A piece that is symmetrical in a rotational format, right? So when we alter things on the wheel, it's what we do after it's done spinning. So I make a form on the wheel, and then I take it off, or I let it sit off, and I do something else to it. I alter it. I cut it up and put it back together. I turn it from a symmetrical round object into a non-round object. That is what altering is. Cutting, putting together, pushing the form, what you do after it comes off the wheel. Trimming and handles are not considered alterations to the form in that way. They are just adding a handle or trimming the piece. What I'm talking about is a modification to the piece itself. So we'll start by centering, which is what I'm doing now, and opening it up. And again, remember, depending on what you're doing with the piece, you need to leave more or less clay for the floor. So if you're trimming it, you need to leave more clay. And you always compress the clay. Compression is so important. I think I will say that in every single video. Compression is super important. I think we'll just make a cylinder-like object here so I can alter it for you. Just go fast through this. So I'm going to leave this thicker than I usually would, so I can show you a type of altering called faceting. Faceting can be really fun. It also can be a little bit of a pain. It can be a little finicky, like most things in clay. That's going to be a theme that you'll find. That clay is sort of finicky. So I'm just going to make this into a better cylinder. I'm going to straighten out the walls. So say I had this piece, I had addressed the lip and the foot, and I was happy with it, and I was done throwing it. There are things I can do to alter it. And one of those things is faceting. We have some cheese graters or cheese cutters in the cabinet, which are basically a wire suspended in like a little prong, which make this a little bit easier, but I'm going to use a wire tool because I know that you guys will have those. So I'm going to turn off my wheel. And faceting, oh no, well that happens. So we're going to just fix that as best we can. Sometimes we do silly things, but clay is pretty forgiving most of the time. So let's see what we can do about that. It's not perfect, but it's much better than it was. I could trim that lip and get rid of that completely, but I'm going to leave it like that. So, faceting is when we take either a cheese cutter or a wire tool and we cut off sections of the piece. And this one might not be thick enough to pull off. Let's see. Nope. It's another reason why we want to have a dry surface as well, because we want to be able to pull away the thickness of clay. There we go. So if your piece is thick enough, you'll be able to cut, let's rotate so you can see it, cut a side off and have a flat surface. And if you leave your piece thick enough, you can take away a decent thickness. But you could go all the way around the side of the piece doing this. But if it's too thin, it won't pull off. It'll just re-stick down, especially if your piece is wet. So you can kind of see, you can build up this nice facet. You could do it in sections where half of it was one facet, half of it was another, or not faceted. Some people, if the piece is thick enough, will go back after you facet and then re-throw a little bit to expand it out so your facets get a little softened. You can also not just push it out with the facet, but like actually throw it and you get a little bit of a twist, but the piece definitely has to be thick enough for you to do that. And just keep in mind that if you're throwing something that you've then cut, it's not going to be consistent. So you'll have thin spots and thick spots. So it's not the easiest thing to do, but it's fun and the results can be really nice. Other ways to alter would be to change the shape of this. So what if I wanted this to be squared off? So I'd want to take 2 fingers of my right hand and one of my left and create a corner. Wet hand so that it slides easily, and I start making something that could be, maybe it's a spout. You could make a spout that way. You might need to add some clay at the top so it's an appropriate spout, but if I want to make something that is square, I need to do 4 corners. So I make another corner, turn it, make another corner, and then make another corner, and then suddenly I've got something that is more square. You could also make something squared off with a paddle. This is a paddle. You could do some of this when it's wet, but the wet clay might stick to the paddle, so that you could do that when it gets a little drier to make it square. You could cut a piece apart once it gets a little drier and put it back together in different ways. Or you could, once it's off the wheel, start to shape it into something else completely, right? To alter it into a sculpture or a very amorphous, asymmetrical shape. There's nothing that says the thing you make on the wheel has to be a functional drinking vessel or eating vessel. We use the wheel for lots of different things. The wheel is a tool. The wheel is a tool to make whatever art you're looking to make. So you could make something that was very, very organic or was a part in another piece. And we'll talk more about making components in another video. So that is altering.